right, brilliant. Okay, I think we're good. Oh, I really love how you put the Colonel's Bequest
Oh,
in the background there.
you
Yes.
noticed. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep, yep. Okay, so what's the reason that you put that in there?
Oh, I think you know. Okay, fine. Well, the reason I put the Colonel's Bequest in there was it's totally my primary inspiration visually for the Crimson Diamond. It was my favorite EGA adventure game art. When I first started making pixel art, it's what I looked at first to say, this is what I want my pixel art to look like. So that's kind of why it's back there. So this signature, this is Douglas Herring's signature. And Douglas Herring is the artist of the Colonel's Bequest. And I got to meet him over PAX West this year, which was something I never thought I'd ever be able to do. That was like the meeting of a lifetime, I have to say. And I have a picture of it, and having this is now a prized possession. And he actually said to me that when he looked at the game art, he thought it was something he could have potentially have done. So no higher compliment, really. I was developing something at the time that I wasn't even thinking of it being a game, because had I started developing it from the ground up, saying this is going to be a game that I'm going to have people play and not just a cute dollhouse of furniture, I wouldn't have put that many drawers in and cupboards and closets, and it just made sense to me to furnish them and, you know, put rugs and matching wallpaper and all that stuff. There's some posters and paintings in the game, and some of them are based on, you know, pieces of art that would have happened in that era. So the parlor has a group of 7 piece by Lauren Harris, who is a famous Canadian artist. There's some Art Nouveau posters that are up too, and it's just one of those things where I like to make little pixel art versions of famous pieces. The thing is with a game like this, it's basically all story and setting and characters. So I feel like, you know, time spent developing those things is not wasted. From playing, you know, the Ben Jordan games, old Yahtzee Kershaw, I learned about Adventure Game Studio. So I had known about it because I'd watched Let's Plays of those games, and then I got to play them myself. And I thought, this is a really handy tool, and I'm not a programmer, so to have something that was purpose-built for making adventure games is a good way for me to start. And so I just started to stitch some of the rooms together and started to gradually come up with a story to explain the house that I was building eventually. Really quickly, so Nancy, yeah, so she's in Toronto, downtown Toronto, and she works as a clerk for the Royal Canadian Museum, which is actually the Royal Ontario Museum. Her boss, he sees this newspaper article about a fisherman found a diamond near Crimson, Ontario, and this fisherman fishes up a fish, guts it, and there's a huge diamond in the middle of it. So the idea being is that we're not sure where it came from. If it had been found on the land, then that's pretty unambiguous, but the fact that it came in a fish, we don't really know exactly where this is. Maybe it didn't come from this land, maybe it did. She goes up north on a train, it takes all day and all night, it takes a really long time. And the idea being is Kimmy, who shares your bedroom, you met her on the way up, and she's a bird watcher. And so she goes because she wants to see the cormorants that are nesting in the area. You kind of, as Nancy, one of the things you have to do is perform some field work, which you actually get to do in the next section of the game. Take some rock samples, analyze them, and really find out if there are diamonds there, in fact. Yeah, except the music. I haven't done the music. I've got 2 amazing musicians helping me right now with the music, and I'm so fortunate that they believe in the project. And one of them is Pablo Romero, and there is a Canadian folk tune called Real Beatrice, and he did a rearrangement of that song for me. My other musician is Dan Polakar, and he's actually a Grammy-nominated musician, and he's the touring keyboarding artist. He does the keyboards for Sean Paul. He wrote the theme. So if you played the most recent version of the demo, when you launch the game, it's got this beautiful piece now, and he wrote that one. I kind of wanted to do 100% of it by myself because I just like that aspect of control. But I was actually chatting to Francisco Gonzalez about it, Grindaslav Games, who has made the Ben Jordan games. He did a Golden Wake, he did Lamplight City, and he's doing Rosewater. He said to me over something that actually really believe to be true, which is it's actually really nice to get at least in one thing that you're not doing in your game that you're getting somebody else to do. To have original music that didn't exist in the world until someone made it for me is actually really special too. So it's been very rewarding to have that aspect of it be somebody else. I'm not planning to do any voice acting in the game. And one of the reasons, as you mentioned, is because for that era of game, so when Colonel's Bequest came out in 1989, they just didn't have the resources to make a voiced game. The games came on those floppy disks, and no one had any room for anything but just the game. And even then, it was a bit of a stretch to get the whole game on there. And it was kind of a miracle that they did. It's cost and it's time that I feel like I'm not ready to put forward. And I do actually think that to make it era specific, I wouldn't want to have voice acting anyway. So for me, it was a pretty clear choice not to have it. Yeah, so the graphical inventory, I know that's an example of me kind of disobeying what I just said, which was I want to make this era specific. They didn't actually, I can't think of any EGA games that have graphic inventories. I totally could be wrong. But the ones I'm thinking of just had like the text inventory, which I do have as an option in the game because some people are just, they really want that experience. But yeah, there is. So we have the jeweler's loop, which is actually lousy as a magnifying glass. The field of view on these things is extremely narrow because it's for geologists and for looking at gems and very small things. It's not as good as a magnifying glass, which is much larger and you can see a lot more of things. And the funny/sad thing about it was when I did the art for it, I made it kind of this yellow color with this green string on it. I had to look for one that was yellow like this, like a brass colored one and not a silver one, even though the silver ones are more common. And then I went, of course, and I bought a green string. I could have easily have changed the icon, but it's green, it has to be green. So I bought this string specifically to find, and this is the closest color I could find to the color I wanted. So, and actually it was instructive for me to buy it because I did realize it's not really good as a magnifying glass at all. Yeah, of course, that's another lower bow thing where, you could do the eavesdropping. I do want to work to make the listening a little bit different than what they had. And I do like making the close-up art. I do like the idea of people listening in on conversations because who doesn't, love to get a bit of true, real talk from the characters. Even though some people have no problem telling you what they think, not everyone is like that. So. Okay, yeah, so that whole room is actually one of those examples of me taking the Clue or Cluedo board as my inspiration without any forward thought. But yeah, that billiards room, I built it because I'm like, hey, I'm building a house. Why shouldn't it have a billiards room? That's cool. And of course, later I was thinking to myself, I need to come up with a reason why I put a billiards room in this house. And I did. So there is an opportunity to do something with that's puzzle related for sure. So that happened after. So this whole thing, it is a matter of me looking at what I already did and trying to come up with ways of how to use it well. And that's a prime example of that. There is one death, which of course I had to put in, the famous tribute to Colonel's Bequest / Psycho. It does seem that people really like the deaths, so I'm tempted to add more. But I feel like the deaths in my game you're going to have to work for, and you'll be amply warned before those things happen. I know there's so many different kinds of people that could play the game eventually. There are the diehard people who remember the games from back in the day, just like me. But there are going to be a lot of people who haven't had any experience with either adventure games as the genre adventure game, and especially the text parser type of adventure game. But when I saw people play it, I realized that there is an appeal to this style of game that people hadn't seen for a long time or at all. It's so much fun to watch people actually play your game right in front of you. It's been educational and incredibly entertaining to see people do that because a lot of people have the same impulses, which is, yes, you want to get in the way, you want to just kiss and hug everybody, which is not possible in the game. The magic about the text parser game is that you do feel that there is that possibility that you can do those things, and when the developer does give you a message, the game gives you a message back, that feeling that they've anticipated that attempt is for me, it's kind of magical, and I see people start smiling when they get a response, and that's really rewarding to me. So a lot of the stuff I think about when I'm designing the game is, what didn't I like about these games back when I played them? And I'm trying to eliminate those things. And that's one aspect of that. Like, I don't want the dead man walking syndrome thing where you get stuck and it's just irreparable and you have to start from the beginning. I don't want that. I didn't want the feeling that the time was passing out of your hands. I don't like being rushed in real life at all. In the Colonel's Bequest, you can advance time by accident if you stumble upon people's conversations. And I didn't want that to be the case either. I wanted the player to be in complete control of what they were doing. And that's why I have that notebook that tells you, okay, explicitly, this is what you need to do to progress through the game. And the same goes for puzzles, because I know that back in the day, hint books were a major source of income, but obviously that's not a thing anymore. So the idea of designing a puzzle that makes very little sense has no appeal to me. I'm designing my puzzles to try and make them as straightforward and as logical as possible. Been just like with the programming, it's been a really educational and enriching experience to actually go through this process. The research has been wonderful, to go and think of, well, I built the house, so why is this house here? Why would it be in the middle of nowhere? So hearing and learning about why places exist. I've got a great book on this bookshelf. Oh, you know what? I can show it. It's called Ghost Town, Ontario's Ghost Town Heritage. And so this has been a really great inspiration for me. You can see all like the bookmarks I have here. So this book was really great because it talks about a lot of the places that don't exist anymore and why they came to be and why they stopped existing. And it was really instructive for writing the background. I can't put this back. I can put this over here. It was really instructive for me to learn those lessons and apply them to a fictional town, and it became natural for me because Canada is so rich in natural resources, and the era that I was writing for, it was a natural connection. And plus, I love rocks. I love mineralogy and geology. I love actually this being in this because I actually do have a bunch of rocks here. It's like show and tell. Okay. So here's a nice bit of fluorite. This is aragonite. This is lapis lazuli. They use this for ultramarine blue pigment. So as an artist, that's really cool. Malachite. So the green color comes from copper. So it's a pigment they actually did use back in the olden days. But when I was in London for Adventure X, one of the first places I went to was the Natural History Museum, and they have an incredible collection of minerals. So I was so pumped to see that. But yeah, so I don't know where I was going. Oh yeah, so when I was writing the story and figuring out why the town was going to be there, the minerals and the idea of having a mine that was prosperous, and then having that mine go bust and then town turning into a ghost town was a perfect way for me to rationalize the fact that I wasn't going to actually make a whole town. It was only going to be focused on one place. I'd like to say I'm about halfway through the game development, but the issue is starting to become testing. The bigger the game gets, the harder it gets to test, and the more that can go wrong. So I would like to think that it's like a pyramid shape where I've built most of the assets that I'm going to need for the game. And then, now that I'm just reusing a lot of assets in animation, there'll be like less to do as I get further along. But it's actually not the case. What's actually happening is like I'm getting a square where, yeah, there might be less I'm developing, but there's more I have to test. So we'll see about that part. But I can say that, yeah, I've done about, I would like to say halfway done. There's no date. I'd like it to be in a year's time. That's my wishful thinking about it. I'd really like that. But and who knows? It's my first project ever, and I'm doing it by myself for the most part. So your guess is nearly as good as mine. We'll see. We will see. It will get finished. That's one thing I know for sure. It will get finished. The question is when. And we'll all find out together. So.
Okay, and my final question is like, do you personally like Jordan almonds?
Oh my goodness. You know what? To be honest with you, I don't even know if I've ever had them. Most people don't like them, and I don't think I would either. It's just a sugary hard shell around a perfectly fine almond. But it was it's one of those things where I don't even know what I was thinking at the time, but people seem very amused by it. So if you ask Evan about the almonds, he has something interesting to say about them.